Hello, thanks for watching the webinar. My name is Sathish Bala. I'm the CEO and founder of DESIFEST. We're a 13-year organization putting on one of Canada's largest South Asian music festival. Now, this webinar is not about music. It's not about my music festival. One of the things that I've been asked over and over and over again over the last few years is, what does South Asian marketing or ethnic marketing or South Asian influencers, what does all this mean? Because it's a brand new industry, and I've been blessed to be in marketing for a really long time, working with some incredible brands, but never really talked about what ethnic marketing or South Asian marketing or influencer marketing really means for this community. And so we decided to create some content to help you guys. If you're curious about how can I integrate South Asian influencers, how can I think about the South Asian community in Canada, what is it? How big is it? Who cares about it? Does my product resonate? Do I have to be an ethnic brand to speak to them? For this segment, I've invited a good friend of mine, Harjas Singh, who goes by the internet name or Instagram name Styled by Harjas. You probably have seen him before because he was in the extremely successful Nordstrom commercial and the entire national campaign that they did. And we want to talk about what is it like to be a South Asian influencer? What is it like to engage the community through somebody like Harj? And you're going to get some valuable tips. You're going to get some incredible lessons that he's learned, and also some incredible lessons that he was able to share with the Nordstrom team and the marketing team that created this incredible campaign. And what you'll see with Harj is that we have this incredible group of South Asian influencers that are across a variety of categories: food, fashion, entertainment, tech, you name it. There's somebody there, or groups of people are there that are willing to now use their influence, their credibility, their authentic innovation and creativity to help your brands better connect with the community. And so I invite you to stick around and check us out. If you have any questions, feel free to follow us up at the end of it or as this webinar is happening. And there's a few more of these planned, and so don't forget to subscribe and join our mailing list, because you don't want to miss this incredible opportunity to learn directly from the community how to work and build and celebrate a truly diverse Canada. So without further ado, we're going to go right into the first guest. My guest today is a very good friend. He's got an incredible online following. His name is Harj from Styled by Harj. And look at him dashing already.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And so, let's start with just the title itself, okay? Because as South Asians, we're used to getting a ton of labels, right? From the day we're born, social influencer. What does that mean to you?
Influence has a really weird definition today. I mean, anybody can have an influence on anybody. Teachers have influence on students. Parents have an influence on their kids. You have an influence on me as a role model. And so as a social influencer, it's really touching a bigger network that you can't touch and feel.
Right.
And so what I mean by that, and what I tell a lot of people, is that I've had access to a platform and people that I couldn't ever think of in my life, right? I've touched people around the whole world through social media. I have an influence on people worldwide through social media.
Right.
And so an influence, a social influence, different than an actual influence, a physical influence, is that where you're on a platform where you have, a chance to teach people something, show people something, share something with people that are larger than your actual reach.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really what it is more than anything.
Yeah, and I've been in the tech space for over 20 years of my life, and at the same time when I was building DESIFEST, I built my own digital marketing agency called Blue Band, and I remember about 6-7 years into it, social media became really important. So the industry, and specifically even the idea of a social influencer, is only 3 to 4 years old.
Very new.
Right?
Very, very new.
So before you started to influence people online, let's talk about your origins. Like, what did you study? How did you, have you always looked this good?
Appreciate that. The origin story of Styled by Harj, of where I am and how I've gotten here today, it's funny. I wear a number of hats as Harjas Singh, the individual. So I started off, if we go back to even high school days, I was an athlete. Wasn't into fashion whatsoever. The passion for it and the love for it was a very late onset in my life. Came in my early 20s. Before that, I was an athlete. I didn't pay attention to how I dressed. So it's weird how it came about, but I think the attraction to fashion really came from colors and patterns.
Right.
So I started really drawing to, I started loving just different colors, patterns, styles, and that's what was my original introduction to fashion. And then from that, I started kind of experimenting, growing, and defining my personal style.
Right.
And so what you see today is what you get. But outside of fashion, studied science and business in school. Have a full bio specialization, so I was supposed to become a doctor, right? Unfortunately, my parents aren't too happy about that. No, but full bio specialization. But then I had an opportunity to do a bunch of business courses on the side. All my internships were in BD and sales, mostly in the tech world as well. From bio to tech to now actually managing my parents' business in import and distribution. So I've taken a very interesting journey to get to where I am today.
Right.
Worn a number of different hats, and I love that because it gives me an opportunity to view life in many different perspectives, many different angles. And so I've done a lot, and then fashion basically came when I was 20, 21. Found that passion for it, found that connection to it, and then I found that there was a niche market where when I graduated, a lot of individuals, a lot of my friends were struggling to make that transition from being a bum in school to dressing up in the corporate world and doing more than just pants and a shirt. They wanted to impress, they wanted to have that, from an external perspective, have that impact on people, and so that aha moment went off where I was like, I can really help individuals because I've figured it out myself. I can help individuals grow their personal style, grow their wardrobes, and really get that confidence that they need. That's where it all started. And then from there, I started sharing my personal style. And 3 years later, Toronto Fashion Weeks, Nike, Nordstrom Canada, and now I'm sitting here looking to grow.
Labels, man. Talking about, just the market itself. It's great that your parents have an entrepreneurial spirit and you've got a business background. I come from a time where, I was first generation here. Like my parents landed and I'm 14 and I don't really understand how the South Asian community is growing. In fact, when we got here, we bought so much Indian ingredients because we didn't think it would be available. Absolutely. Like we packed bags of rice, through customs and we came here from Singapore.
It was a different time.
You know what I mean? And so when you look at sort of how, now there's first generation Canadians that are here, how do you see the South Asian market as a consumer market in Canada grow in the last 5-10 years?
Well, as a consumer market, as your population grows, everything grows with it, right? So the one thing I've seen, so my dad came when he was 13, 14. So he was relatively young when he got here. From a consumer market and seeing it grow, again, as the population's grown, you've seen that availability grown. So being in the import and distribution, being in the food industry, we've seen how what we started with one product of rice grow into 14 brands of rice.
Wow.
Started with mom and pop stores of only the Indian market, grow to a market reach of like big supermarkets, mom and pop stores, restaurants, private supermarkets, the whole shazam throughout Canada. So, taking my business as its own and basically using that as kind of an example, that's exactly how the South Asian community here has grown. I think, when you look at the South Asian community, when it first got settled, when my parents got here, it was very entrepreneurial. We sat and we established ourselves as entrepreneurs, as smart individuals who could run their own businesses, make their money, hold their own. And now that's given us the platform to rise in politics, to rise in the arts, to rise in music, to rise in fashion. And so you can see that building block, and it's it's that exact example of building blocks. That's exactly what it was. We built that base, we continued to grow, and as that market and as that population grew, that consumer market grew as well, and that availability of goods, availability of whatever we really needed as a South Asian community, including opportunities, grew with that as well.
Yeah, and what's interesting is not only do we consume products from the community, which is what we traditionally did, because we would support the South Indian that had the little corner store or the dentist or the doctor, but now South Asians don't differentiate. We just buy and consume products that are the best for who we want to represent, right? Like you've got a list of brands you worked with, Nordstrom, Nike, you know what I mean? And so when we look at from a brand perspective and brands are looking at consumers going, hey, I don't have an ethnic product, so why should I market with South Asians? I think it's more of every product could have a South Asian purpose. And then there's people that argue to go, well, we shouldn't segregate either. Like it shouldn't be a South Asian message. It should just be a message So I just wanted to see what your thoughts
I mean,
on that.
it is really interesting. When I started Styled by Harj as well and started promoting my personal style, what I started promoting first and foremost was, and what caught a lot of people's attention was, I used to coordinate my bug, my turban, with my accessories. And to me, it was so simple. But to the rest of the world, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? And
it's supposed to be traditional most of the time.
Exactly. But I mean, the tradition doesn't differ between color and pattern choice and anything along those lines. And so, I mean, usually a lot of the individuals are doing the darker colors or the whites, right? There's the whites, the creams, or the blacks and the blues. And so, you know, because I attracted to color, that's where I started. And so when I started, I was like, oh, I felt like it was specific to South Asians because I was incorporating my turban. But then when I took that message and tried to continue to grow it, it became more of, I'm sharing that passion for style with the color, with the vibrance, with that colorful personality, and it just so happens to be with something that makes me who I am as an individual and as a Sikh. When I started, it was basically coordinating the accessories, and now it's using the turban and using the color and using that colorful heritage and personality that we come with to brand that to bigger brands and bigger companies and share that color and that vibrance with them, and not differentiate the fact that the turban is specific to South Asians or to Sikhs, right?
No, I agree. Where I liked, you know, when I started following you, one of the things that's really interesting in fashion is, and I've worked with Cadillac Fairview and a whole bunch of really, you know, high-end, you know, fashion brands. One of the things that fashion sort of segregates is, you know, there's a lot of Indian fashion, and it's pretty much tied around the wedding industry. And most non-South Asians, when they think about South Asians, it's an attire for an event, right? Like, I need something for Diwali, I need something, right? But then when you look at what you're doing and what I'm noticing in mainstream brands where, you know, you can buy a nice jacket from, let's say, I don't know, Zara, for example, but they've got ethnic patterns inside, right? It's not something I would wear to a wedding, but I would wear it any day because it's got a level of like flash. So, you know, what I've always admired about your creativity is, yes, you're representing your culture as a Sikh and wearing the pug and the outfit, but if I ignore that fact for a little bit, it's just great fashion.
Exactly. It's just color, it's the vibrance, it's my personality coming out through that.
Right.
And it just so happens that the South Asian culture, the South Asian heritage, us as a people, we are very colorful. Right. And so that, you know, subconsciously, that's maybe where the love for color and pattern came from, is seeing that growing up through the years, through my own family, through all the, you know, Diwali and all the festivals and everything that we celebrate is so colorful. But I mean, when it comes to, for example, like again, when I started, it was using what made me special to try to get out there. So having the turban, which again, I mean, to clarify, the turban it's my crown, right? It's a symbol of who we are as Sikhs. It's something that represents who we are. It's something that it's our symbol. It's my crown. But because it's a part of me, I can use it however I wish to. And so I wish to use it in a way where I could express my colorful personality through my clothing, including my turban. And so that's where it started. But then, I mean, when brands started reaching out, so even smaller Toronto boutiques, smaller accessory companies that reached out to me, what they connected to and the reason they wanted to work with me was because of that colorful personality that both was an internal and external thing. So for a lot of companies out there, even though they're creating a product that might be more Western mainstream, and the reason that they're hesitant on reaching out to a Sikh model, a South Asian model, a black model, anybody that may be slightly different from their generic, what they're looking for, is because is that background going to fit that product, right? And that's always a key thing. However, what I think they need to look past is not necessarily looking at the individual and what their identity is, from a cultural religion, exactly, but more of the color, the vibrance, the personality that comes with all of that, that they should use to basically connect that bridge, taking that colorful product, like you said. So like, for example, a Zara, a Club Monaco, any brand that's now incorporating, you know, colors and patterns and any inspiration from Indian, African, wherever it may be, religion and culture, putting that into their product. Well, that's exactly what you're doing with working with a ethnic model, is you're taking those fun, creative parts of who we are as individual, using that to connect with your piece to now reach a much larger audience.
And I think the brands that are progressive, the brands that are looking for these kind of opportunities, realize that today Canada looks like you, looks like me, and looks like a bunch of other folks.
Absolutely.
And while we look different, we have the same similar taste in the brands that speak to us. I like Nike because I like Nike's message.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? But I also like Adidas because I like their message, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I, you know, when I look at sort of what you're doing, I say it's fantastic that, you know, somebody like a Nordstrom tapped into you. I mean, I was watching TV, just chilling one day, this commercial comes out, and anything Cadillac Fairview I pay attention to just because I had a chance to work on the brand. And then I was like, wait a second, I think I just saw somebody I know. Rewind, and there you are on TV in my living room.
Yeah.
I was like, what just happened? Very proud moment, man. Hats off on that.
Thank you. I still can't put that into words. People till today ask me, what was the feeling? What was the aftermath? How do you feel now? And honestly, I don't really know how to put it. I don't know what it meant to be on a nationwide campaign, to be in somebody's living room, to be on, I mean, on a humongous billboard on Dundas Square. Like splattered across billboards around Toronto, bus shelters, like it was crazy. But I mean, what Nordstrom really did with that campaign, full 360, if you look at everybody in that campaign, they were different, but they were also unified. We were all connected because we're all Canadian. And I think that's the message. But what Nordstrom did was they took what made each one of us different and special and brought that out regardless of that background. So there was, there was transgender, there was different cultures, different colors, different people, different beliefs, all in one campaign. They took all the differences, but found a way to show how that we're still all unified. And that the product that Nordstrom is selling and showing to people is different but unified at the same time. And what they really wanted to do with me was bring out that color. So you saw in the first campaign, the bright blue bug. The second campaign, the bright orange bug. A lot of my outfits were very colorful through that whole thing. And so that's what I go back to, is when I started, I was taking what made me special to start that. But now the whole branding behind it is incorporating who I am as an individual to connect that with a much larger message of style and fashion, period. Right? And nothing more than that. And so, I mean, again, like Nordstrom did, the feedback from that commercial was nothing short of beautiful. I don't think I heard one negative about it. And the feedback after the fact, which is why they did the holiday campaign afterwards, was amazing. I heard their stock price went through the roof as well. So they really did a good job.
Connecting the dots, right?
Absolutely.
Diving into that a little bit deeper, because one of the hesitations I hear sometimes from brand managers is not about not working with the community, but we don't know if we're positioning them wrong. And so by default, it's not worth the risk in making a mistake. So I'm curious, when you're going through the Nordstrom project, what kind of lessons that brand managers get out of this? So,
I mean, honestly speaking, there was a little bit of, and I told the Nordstrom team this as well, a little bit of a lack of education on Sikh history and identity and who we are as a religion and what we believe in and don't believe in. So it definitely was a learning experience for them to understand, like even small things. For example, when we did the first shoot, I was in the light blue turban. Shortly after that, they needed me in another outfit. They wanted me to change it, and they're like, oh, we'll just do it on the fly. And I'm like, I can't just do it on the fly. Like, I need a mirror, I need some time, I need to take one off, fix my beard, put the turban on. Like, I can't just, look in a mirror on the side of a car. Yeah, exactly, right? It's not that easy. And their eyes were open. They're like, we didn't even think about that. And it was not anything wrong. It was just like, oh, that makes sense. Like, if we were going to do a different hair look on so-and-so, we'd have to get them into the hair and makeup, sit them down, open up their hair, straighten it out, curl it up, whatever it is. And I'm like, it's basically the same thing. I'm like, exactly. And so for them, it was a different experience. Going back to your point on, do they want to take that risk? So part of my sales pitch as an individual to companies, to people like yourself, to whatever it may be, is give people a reason. And I know you believe in this big time too. You give a person, an individual, a community a reason to pay attention, they will pay attention. What Nordstrom did with their campaign was they gave them 13 reasons. They gave 13 different personalities, or however many people were in both the campaigns. They gave that many reasons to that many communities to now pay attention to Nordstrom. So I tell a lot of companies, smaller companies that I want to work with, is put a South Asian on your brand campaign, put them on your store, put them on your poster, and just look at the floodgates open of South Asians, because the South Asian community is one that when one person succeeds, we all succeed. There's a lot of support, there's a lot of love. And so when people saw me up there, I know personally there were so many people that just said, we don't shop at Nordstrom, but we were at Nordstrom this morning, just because we connected.
Hey, I was one of those guys, because I never really thought about it. Because again, to your point, communities support each other.
Absolutely.
Similarly, we support brands that support us.
And that's
you know,
exactly
and I think the perception change we're hoping these kind of conversations will create is, you know, South Asians are not only available for ethnic campaigns.
Absolutely.
We're available for campaigns.
I mean, we were talking about this earlier too. I was doing an interview earlier, and they were mentioning, what do you want to see in the next 10 years? And I said, I want to be able to be casted for opportunities regardless of the description being looking for a fashionable Sikh male.
Right.
I want to be casted because the description is looking for a male that's fashionable. And then they like what they see. They like the personality, they like the look. The turban's obviously an added accessory. It's a wonderful accessory. I love it. It's a part of who I am that I can accessorize because I am a Sikh. But they like the look, they like the style, they like the pizzazz that I bring to the table, and that's why I'm getting that.
Yeah.
Going back to that point on taking risks, I mean, that's where somebody like yourself comes into play, right? The education, the knowledge, and the experience that you put into this industry over the time and time again of working with companies, working in the South Asian community, building that repertoire, is when you have individuals like myself who have that knowledge, but also a team that has that knowledge of, okay, how do you avoid that risk?
Yeah.
You want to do South Asian community? Well, we know how to avoid that risk because we are South Asian. So if you want to say something, we know if it's right or wrong. You want to portray us in a specific way, we know if it's right or wrong. And so that risk is so easily minimized that it shouldn't even be something that crosses your mind, because there's so many ways to avoid those risks.
Well, it's interesting because I still struggle with this terminology of ethnic marketing, because it feels very segregated. It feels like you have to take your message and somehow dumbify it for us. Where I look at it as smart marketing, the right brand values will connect with me whether I'm Indian or not. And there's a benefit from making it a bit more culturally appealing, right?
You can reach that
and less about segmentation. And you know, one of the things that I think about when I work with brands, and I think, you know, you can step in and answer on this, is the first side is obviously you and the brand and how you can, you know, add value to them. But on the flip side, how does you partnering with the brand allow your followers to benefit? What's the end result? Because at the end of the day, it's just views. And monetization or connecting to conversion is still really, you know, an untapped, you know, conversation. So when you partner with the Nordstrom or a Nike and you take it to your fans on your Instagram, your YouTube, whatever, what are you trying to do with those moments? Right.
So I mean, forget even the bigger brands, right? Like even when I work with Haley, who's a Toronto boutique, when I work with accessory brands that are a little closer, it goes back to your original point when we were talking about social influence. That's all that it's about. That's the definition of social influence, is that why is X company giving me a pocket square, giving me a suit, giving me this, giving me that? I mean, this whole outfit's sponsored. From my socks to the pants to the vest, I didn't pay for anything. So why, right?
I paid for all my stuff.
But why? It's because when they see me on something like this and this platform, they're gonna be like, holy crap, why is, I mean, Harjas wearing this outfit, this product on such a stage, man, I can wear this to work. Harj is wearing it, so I can wear it, right? You know, Harj signs off on it, so it must be legit. And that's what social influence is all about. And so when the reason it's worthwhile for companies to reach out to us is because of that social influence, because we engage with our followers on a daily basis. And so there's a level of trust. So, I mean, we met two years ago, but before that we didn't really know each other, but we were connected. Why were we connected? Because you had an influence of DESIFEST. So without knowing you, I had a reason to trust you, and I had some sort of legitimacy behind you. When, I mean, people in this room right now that never met me, they have a reason that they're here putting their time into this, because even though they never met me before this day, that 6,500 followers, that Nordstrom campaign, Toronto Fashion Week runway has a legitimacy behind it. And that's what social influence is all about. And so when companies, I mean, obviously it's great for me when I'm working with a big company because that engagement goes up, more people see me. It's great for the community, but vice versa, it's good for the community because when I talk about it, I like to believe that my message is very authentic. So when I work with that company, my followers and the individuals around me know that whatever I'm saying about X company is coming from a very authentic, real place, and they can then trust that company 10 times more, which is a reason why you ended up in Nordstrom, and why you started shopping at Nordstrom, and why my uncle that never shopped at Nordstrom was in Nordstrom last week, and why, I mean, people that don't usually, so I don't know if you've seen Haley's brand. Haley's brand is very colorful and crazy and patterned, and I love it because that's who I am as an individual. But a lot of people are like, that's too much for me. But when they see it on me, they're like, well, okay, we get it because Harj believes in it, so, right? I mean, even with such a small following, it works on such a big, much bigger level. When you have hundreds of thousands of followers, then you have so many more people that are listening to that message, and that's why it works so well for brands.
Well, it's funny, my small fashion success with my bow ties, right? Because I wanted to find a way to differentiate myself in an agency world where everybody was just the same, the suits and the white shirts. And so I said, man, how do I stand out? So I bought my first bow tie, and I loved the bow ties, but I didn't like the look and feel. It was very boring and bland, and they were still expensive, you know, a couple $100s, right? So then I started to find my own, because I like those bright colors and the florals and etc. And then
throwing some brighter color on you today.
You're the shining today, man. I got to, you know, and apparently you look slimmer in black. So I was like, all right, let me do that.
Vacation
and very quickly, my personal brand got tied to a bow tie. And even today, after I stopped wearing bow ties, everybody I meet, the first thing is like, where's your bow tie? Where's your bow tie? So, and I could have easily started to sell bow ties, and I would have had a small tribe of people that bought it just because.
And taking that exact point and, you know, pitching that to a company, be it in the banking, be it in the fashion, be it in an entrepreneurial setting, in construction, whatever it may be, is that exact message, is that you become, when we contract as an influencer with a company, we sit down, we learn their message, we learn their story, and we learn what they want us to represent on behalf of that company, but the story they want us to tell in our authentic way. And so that's why it's so beneficial for companies, especially when they're looking at South Asian community, because our story is so different. The way we tell our story is so different. So when we take their story that has been told 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times because of the longevity of the business, and now look at the South Asian community, the spin that we put on it is going to be different. And so they get an opportunity to tell that same banking story, that same XYZ boring story that they need to tell to sell their business in a much different way now, because nobody's tapped into this market yet. And so now when I tell my story like this. Right? Checkered pants, bright yellow vest, bright yellow pug. If you see my socks, you'll go crazy. But
come on, let's show them. Mine's regular.
Shout out to Six Socks Silver. They got the Toronto. I don't know if you guys can see that. They got the Toronto skyline on it.
Do we get the socks on camera? Well, make sure we got it. Okay.
So I mean, they've got the Toronto skyline on it. It's crazy, but that's what I mean. You're not gonna get that unless you tap into a network that's different. And then on top of that, not only do you have me saying that story, but now I know so many people that have told my Nordstrom story on behalf of me.
Me included.
Exactly.
You know.
And it's only because of the fact that when one person succeeds in this community, the rest of us follow.
No, that's a great philosophy.
I mean, the day after that billboard went up, I had people from around the world messaging me. They're like, your dad sent me this, your uncle sent me this, your sister, your cousin, your this. Like, my friend in Vancouver that I hadn't talked to in 10 years, they're like, oh, this person sent me. I'm like, I haven't even talked to her in 10 years. And so everybody else is telling my story. And so now, as a brand again, you have a community of strength behind you, which is bigger than that number on my Instagram that says 6,500. It's much bigger than that, right? And so, I mean, that's the biggest part.
So your story is one of positivity.
Absolutely.
I know you're keeping track of everybody else's effort. Without really bad-mouthing them, what's one that you saw in the last year that sort of gave you the cringes, man? Like, I can't believe they did that. I mean, I know one that everybody talks about, but
I mean, you know, the Gucci one was I don't know if that's where you were going. So, I mean, I like to make that clear. I did an interview at CBC Vancouver and London University, and they brought that up as well. And one thing that I want to say about the Gucci thing was we weren't hating on Gucci, right? We weren't hating on the brand. I mean, they've done some questionable things in the past recent. Yes, again, I mean, people like Spike Lee are speaking out, then we have reasons to be concerned. The reason that us as a Sikh community spoke out about it, why I posted about it, why I engaged about it and talked about it was mostly because, like I said, the turban is my crown. It is a symbol of my religion. Now, because it's a part of who I am, the same way a hijab is a part, the kippah is a part, whatever it may be about whatever religion is a part of them, you can wear that hijab, you can wear that kippah, you can wear that bag and turban however you wish to, right? Because it's what is you. Now, the turban, again, it's a symbol of our religion. It is our crown. It has value that it holds that's larger than words itself to describe. So our biggest feedback was how taken care of the turban was it before and after the show? Did they treat it like a piece of cloth, right? Did they treat it like another shirt?
Right.
Which is most likely what happened, right? And there was a number of other articles of faith in that show, in that runway, and a lot of other communities that spoke out about that. Because when I go home, my turban comes off, it goes on a specific shelf, it gets rolled up, it gets washed, it gets put away in its own place. Like it's, you know, it's not like the rest of my clothes.
Yeah.
And the same thing with a lot of other articles of faith. And so that was our biggest backlash was two things. How much respect did you give something that should have more respect that we can even give in words? The second thing was, if you want to use the turban, great. I'm so happy that you guys want to use it. I'm so happy that we've had that much of an impact on the fashion world, that you guys have seen it enough, that you want to throw it on your models. But I mean, me aside, there's so many models out there that have six packs and chiseled chins and that look great, and that are Sardars, that are full six, that can do that for you. Like, call us up. We'll happily come down to Paris and rock that runway for you. I mean, it's not like the models were walking naked. I mean, we look great in shirts. We're all slim. Why didn't you just get us to do it? Why didn't you just get a Muslim model to do it? Why didn't you just get so-and-so model to do it, right? Like, that was the biggest question that we wanted people to open, especially in mainstream, especially because we could attach Gucci's name to it, be like, look, like we're here. We're ready to put on. We've walked multiple runways. We've got that legitimacy. We know how to walk a runway. It's not like I'm an amateur walking a runway. We know how to do it now. We know how to do it with poise and elegance. So why don't you just hit us up, right? And so that was, I mean, the two major concerns there, where you could have, instead of the community now not being a big fan of Gucci, you could have been like, all right, let's get a Sikh model, throw them on our runway, use the turban. I mean, selfishly, use the turban to our advantage to incorporate the color in our outfits and spread that message of love, unity, and diversity at the same time, which is exactly what Nordstrom Canada did, right? So, that was kind of the main, but again, main reasons behind that was just, you know, the respect to the turban, and we're here. It's not like there's no models that don't exist in our community.
And I think that's important. You know, the point of this webinar and the reason we're engaging in these conversations is to create that visibility that there is a growing opportunity in a market that you haven't figured out how to tap into. And it's not to say you're doing it on purpose. Some of it is just lack of visibility.
Some of it is that risk factor.
Right? And some of it is risk factor. And, you know, when they get a chance to work with an ambassador like you and a lot of the other people in your network, whether it's music, whether it's food, whether it's fashion, whether it's tech, whether it's, you know, video, photography, we're now rich with people that are creators, people that are innovators, and they're looking for opportunities with brands to help elevate not just their offering, but also bring the brands into the community in a very authentic storytelling way.
That's exactly it. Authentic and genuineness. A lot of people talk about the fake followers. We were talking about it before, the fake views on a lot of things. I mean, it's so easy to, right? I could quickly go buy 2,000 followers, nobody would know, but I would know. And that would impact the way that I tell my message, because now I know I'm talking to a piece of my following that's not real, and that takes a part of me out. And so, I mean, to your point as well, something that I was going to mention, the immense talent for creative content in the South Asian community is ridiculous. There are so many talented people doing so much talented stuff that it's gotten worldwide. Just Lily, Humble the Poet, Rupi Kaur, Babu the Painter, Just Rain, Fateh, all these guys doing huge things. I mean, we're trying to break into the fashion world. Waris Ahluwalia, who's been doing it for so long. We're trying to do our little bits here. the creative content is crazy.
Yeah.
The ability to take something and be like, hey, we want a fresh look on it. Okay, great. Like I just did that styling series. I think you've seen it.
Absolutely.
That was the first time that somebody, I mean, a couple of people have done styling series before, and I took bits and pieces. The first time I did something like that, the feedback was great. And so for brands out there too that are like, hey, we just don't want you to post a picture or post a video and just talk off a script. Okay, great. Tell us, like, how can we work with you, especially with a creative mind like yourself, to create a brand new story for you, which is something that we can do effortlessly, in my opinion, and something we've been doing for so long. So
storytelling has now got more options, and I think that's what we're trying to figure out. So to close it all up, just in case your ideal brand happened to be watching, who would be like your top 3 that tomorrow, if they're like, hey, we want you to work, you'll stop everything in life and jump on it?
I mean, so Nordstrom was on that list. That was when I started 3 years ago. It was to be on a brand, nationwide brand. It was like, that was the goal. I was like, I don't think it's ever going to happen, but it happened. And so, I mean, Nordstrom showed so much love through the process. They continue to show so much love. It's been great. I'm a big Zara fan. I wear a lot of Zara, so that would be ideal one day. But I mean, there's so many companies, right? You know, Topshop Canada, they're not only because of their network and their platform, but just the creativity of the clothing. I love their style. I love the cuts. I love how they experiment with men's fashion. I love how they get excited about men's fashion. I've worked with Club Monaco in the past, representing their brand for Nordstrom Canada, and I love the elegance and the richness and the quality product that they bring. So, I mean, being able to support the Canadian companies as well. Club Monaco was a Canadian company that flourished in New York and then came back to Canada. Topshop Canada having its presence here through Hudson's Bay, obviously Nordstrom Canada, Zara being more of an international brand, but those companies mentioned take men's fashion to a level where I want to see men's fashion at. I want to see men, and that's part of why I wear checkered pants and yellow vests and push the button on fashion, because I want men to be able to experiment with that, express that artistic side, express that color that they have inside of them, and be comfortable wearing different cuts and styles, so that men's fashion isn't just, oh man, just like shirt and t-shirt. It's just men's. But you know what I mean, right? It's more than just that corporate America kind of look. I got you. And those would be ideal brands that I hope one day maybe would hit me up, and we'll see what happens.
This is great, man. So obviously, you know, you got into this because you got a philosophy, you got a purpose, you got a mission. Some of it was sort of, you know, slowly pulled out in our conversation. But what is the mission behind Style by Heart?
Yeah, I mean, so it started off as just an innocent young man who didn't know anything about social media, hated technology, to be very honest, even though I worked in the tech field, that just had good role models and a good network and started sharing my personal style. That's all it was to begin with. And so the mission was just to share my funkiness, share my color, get a bit of my personality out there. As the platform grew, the mission more or less became, to help on a personal level, to help men experiment and grow their personal style. So from a styling perspective, that was the mission. From a platform perspective and as a personality, now a model, face of a campaign, the mission was to create enough of a platform to share our South Asian diversity, share our South Asian culture, our Sikh culture, share what makes us special, share what the turban means, what the beard means, why I keep it, why I am who I am. That was a big part of it. I wanted, when I started originally, I didn't care if it was my face or somebody else's face, as long as the turban and beard was out there, I was happy. And that was why I started it, to get that opportunity out there. As the platform has now continued to grow, and you know, it still feels weird saying this, but people look at me as a role model, and the mission has really become to inspire youth, especially Sikh youth, to be confident in what makes them different. When I was younger, I questioned my turban, I questioned my beard, I questioned my heritage, mostly because I grew up in a predominant Jewish community. I was very lucky that the Jewish community is very much like the Sikh community, where they support and they're very open and they're very diverse. They have their extremes, but they also have their middle ground as well. Right. Very similar to the Sikh community. So they showed a lot of love, and I didn't have a lot of problems. But I was an outsider. And so I didn't really understand why I looked different, what this was that made me different. My parents obviously did a really good job at it, but I went through that awkward, weird phase where I asked those tough questions, and now the grass was greener on the other side. And so this platform, more than anything, bigger than myself, is to really provide that inspiration to that lost soul that's looking to find that inner fire in them, that lost soul that's confused about their identity, that lost soul that is, you know, misguided, trying to find something, struggling to find that balance. I tell a lot of youth that come to me, sometimes their parents don't like when they talk to me because everybody puts me out there as a model and influences social media, and they're like, that's not going to pay the bills. But I tell them, I've got an undergrad degree, I've got a bio degree, I manage my parents' business, I run a side business, I like crossed all my T's, dotted all my I's, I made sure I had a safety net, and then I experimented with the arts. And so really the mission now is to get a platform where I can continue to share what makes us special as a community, but then also to be an inspiration and to be maybe a connection or a helping hand to somebody that is lost, to find that inspiration and to find that confidence in them, to take themselves to that next level. And it doesn't need to be, I mean, we're in the lights, camera, action. I mean, you're a little bit on the back end with the marketing, but a lot of people look at this and it's like, oh man, you're like in front of this, you're on this, you're here, you're there. And I'm like, yeah, but that's just because that's the way fashion is. But I mean, your passion was tech and marketing, a lot of the back end stuff, but you found it and you're so happy in it. You know, we have people here that do video and photography behind the scenes, friends that do voice acting behind the scenes, but they found that inner fire, and somewhere, somehow, somebody inspired them, somebody held their hand through that process, and now they're happy with where they are, and they're willing to find a way to take over the world in their own respective way. And so that's really why, for the youth, and for Sikh youth especially, to become confident and comfortable with who they are.
Yeah, and the best part is, this is a start of a growth that's going to happen.
That's the hope.
We're going to get more South Asian influencers. We're going to get more people with a personal mission to not only change the community, but find ways to connect the community with the bigger version, right? So I think, you know, if you're a brand manager out there, if you're looking at, you know, how can we expand our marketing vision? How can we bring new thoughts, new ideas, new creativity into our product launch, service launch? I invite you to reach out to myself or Harj, because at the end of the day, it's an opinion and it's a new idea and an innovation. Nothing has to go to market until you're ready, but what if a new perspective could help your brand grow, reach new customers, build a different market share or new loyalty that you're not tapping into today? Because we know the community's there. Absolutely. We know the community's got spending power, and we know that we're looking for new innovative brands that speak to us on our terms and our values. And so, you know, it's been great. How do they get in touch with you?
So main social media is Instagram. You can hit me up at @styledbyharj. And then I have my website, www.styledbyharj.com. And yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, you can find me there. Shoot me a DM, send me a message. Email's up on the website as well.
Promo code Sathish. No, I'm just kidding. And you know, we've got another series coming up to continue with this idea with a few more influencers. We're also bringing on some people that will talk about, well, how do we put a dollar value around social media marketing and the community? And is that even exist today, and how do we start to sort of think about monetization expenses and some of the other behind the scenes stuff, because they're all part of the same ecosystem. So if you love this, then please share it or sign up for our newsletter so you know when the next one is coming. And we want to make sure that this conversation can continue to happen inside your boardrooms, and we're here to help and facilitate and help you grow your business. So thank you for being with me, man.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.